Welcome everyone to Unscripted Coding. Today we are going to be playing around with, again, OpenAI, but in particular, the Realtime API. Now, if you're a developer, you might have been following OpenAI's 12 Days of Christmas, in which every day they are releasing a small new feature, a small product, or something for developers. And today we had a few goodies from OpenAI for developers. But in particular, what caught me off guard was the WebRTC integration with Realtime API. Now, if you remember, and if you are a subscriber to this channel, a few months ago, I had played around with Realtime API right when it came out, and I ran straight into a brick wall. This was because it required WebSockets and it required authenticated WebSockets to run. And we'll talk a bit more about that. But today, they have really simplified the ability for any sort of client to connect to OpenAI. And so we can build a very simple single page website, very simple app, anything really to connect to OpenAI. Now, if you're thinking, what is this real-time API stuff? Well, you might have seen even earlier ChatGPT's advanced voice mode. This is where you can just talk with the chatbot and it is able to respond to you very naturally. And unlike way back when, where it was voice and then it translates to text, puts into a chatbot, the chatbot responds in text, and then there's some sort of algorithm that turns their text into a voice. This one is really natural. This one is built into the model itself. And so one of the ways that you can very easily tell when a model is just doing this text-to-speech, speech-to-text thing is it cannot, say, mimic accents, sing, correct pronunciation, things like that. Whereas ChatGPT's advanced voice mode, because it is natively using voice or audio, it's able to respond that way. Now, Realtime API is just the API version of advanced voice mode. Whereas for ChatGPT, you're an end user, you pay your 20, 30 bucks a month, and you're able to access these features. Realtime API gives you those features as an API for developers to build apps, to use it on their own, however they want, charged per minute along the way. So, you can imagine why I was very, very excited to try and start building this a few months ago when Realtime API first came out. The problem is that the first version used WebSockets. You had to connect to the API through a WebSocket. Now, both WebSockets and WebRTC basically create a connection and an ongoing connection with another client, with another server on the internet. And so previously, if we're just using GPT-4 text-to-text, I am sending one message to the server, it responds back, done. There's no need for an ongoing conversation, whereas WebSockets and WebRTC are traditionally more for streams or video calls or voice calls, because you are speaking, there's a bit of silence, they respond, and at the same time you're speaking, so it needs that persistent connection for a while. Now, WebSockets is just one way of doing this, but the problem we ran into pretty early on is that because of the authentication required by OpenAI, you could not, as a client, connect directly to OpenAI. It is meant for server to server. That means that if I wanted to build a very simple phone application to connect to OpenAI, I still needed a middleman. So here's my phone right here, and here is the server. I cannot directly connect. There has to be a middleman in between just passing messages along because it's meant for server to server. So OpenAI connects to a server, and then the server that you own or you designed connects to the phone, the web browser, the app that you've designed. In reality, it's not that big of a challenge, but I just wasn't interested at that point. It just adds to the complexity, it adds to the infrastructure, it makes it harder for everything to go. And, if I'm building this as a hobby, that's just annoying. This is where WebRTC comes in. And really, it is a selection of authentication. But in this case, it is a client-side application. So your phone, your web browser connecting to OpenAI directly. Just one connection. There's no need for a middleman. I don't need to host a server. Nothing like that. And so, I went straight to work trying to take what I knew from my trials with the Websocket and move it to WebRTC. And I'll tell you something surprising. I was using Gemini just because I've recently gotten some credits and Gemini Advanced. And Gemini just created the application basically without fault. And so we're cheating a little bit in this unscripted coding because it hasn't really happened before where AI had created picture perfect completed application. So we'll walk through that code, but let's first demo what it does. First of all, because it's a client side and I don't want to bleed credits to everyone in the world, this is designed so that every user puts in their own API key, presumably charged to their credit card, and away we go. And here, what's going to happen is we're going to have a conversation with OpenAI. I'm going to keep it very short here. I also have a weird prompt saying, please respond in French. So you can expect that. But let's get this started. So of course, it's going to prompt if it can use a microphone.
Hello, how can I help you today?
I am a bit bored and I was thinking about what hobbies I can pick up.
Il existe de nombreux hobbies intéressants que vous pourriez essayer. Si vous aimez la peinture, le dessin ou la sculpture. Si vous êtes intéressé par la musique, apprendre à jouer d'un instrument.
Oui, la musique est excellente. Est-ce qu'on peut parler un peu de la musique?
Bien sûr, la musique est un vaste sujet.
Okay, so you can see that what's happening is that we connected, started a voice conversation. The ordering is not accurate. So when I say Gemini did really well, it did really well for a first shot. But it is not perfect, even though I think I use the word perfect, in that there's a bit of ordering issue. And when we walk through the code, it did have some extra unused code. And so we'll look into that and we'll see maybe Gemini got lucky, but I was just very pleased that I didn't have to write basically anything. Okay, so let's get back to this. Hello, how can I help you today? And then I responded, I'm a bit bored. And then because it has a system message of your French, please respond in French, it starts answering, there's many hobbies, interesting hobbies that you can try, blah, 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 blah. And then I respond, and then it responds. And then we could keep going. And the reason why I was very excited about this is because I have always enjoyed learning languages. I'm terrible, terrible, terrible at it. You can hear it in my very, very poor French. But I think this is incredibly useful. This is actually quite useful if... especially in languages where it is a foreign script. So,
Hello, how can I assist you today?
你好吗?
Bonjour, comment puis-je vous aider aujourd'hui?
Very, very helpful. I'm, I'm born in Canada, but I should be able to speak a bit of Chinese. I can't read anything. Having it spit out Chinese and the text is very helpful because I would not be able to write this out myself. Um, Anyways, many ways you can use this. And if you watch what is happening in the console here, what's going to happen is we're going to send an audio stream to OpenAI. And what's going to happen is they're going to send audio streams back, but they're going to send events along the way that include little bits of data, which is what what GPT says, and then what I said, and little bits like that. So once again, I will just connect.
Hi, how can I... Bonjour. Comment puis-je vous aider aujourd'hui?
Merci, je suis bon. Je veux parler un peu des exercices.
Bien sûr. Allez-y, je vous ai...
That wasn't quite right, but whatever. What you can see here is that we are going to get little bits, and all along you can see this is a persistent connection that is passing information nonstop. And so right off the bat, you can see that we created a session. We're going to update the session with some information. And then it's going to just start connecting. And so here you can see that I wanted the transcript. So along the way, it's going to respond hi, and then the delta means that it's just transcribing along the way. So this is an exclamation mark. The next piece is how can I help you, or how can I assist you today, blah, blah, blah. And then what's going to happen is that input audio is us inputting and sending things back. And so the buffer has started, it's stopped, and then we can see the transcription come out. In this case, I guess it caught nothing, but if we scroll down to the next one, sorry, that's not right. Where is the transcription completed? Right here. So here it says, merci, je suis bon, whatever. And along the way, you're going to see this API error. This is not handled very well by the code that Gemini has created, but it doesn't matter. All of this is zero audio. And so OpenAI is wondering, why are you sending me empty audio? And you could see it's just happening all the time whenever I hit a bit of silence, whenever we're between the conversation and I'm just waiting for its response. It's just sending all of this out. So, in general, I'm pretty happy with how all of this looks. Of course, we can make this prettier, we can make this look better, and we can definitely fix the order in which all of this comes out. You can imagine this is because there's just a bit of delay while it figures out what I said, and it's already responding before it gives me the transcript back. So we need some logic to move this upwards. But I think what is going to be fun is if we walk through the code here, because it is, I think, 600 lines or so. A lot of it is styling, don't worry, but a lot of it is a little bit confusing. And as I was working through it, I was asking Gemini why it made choices, and it pointed out various tricks, I guess, that when I went online, I did confirm as well that people ran into problems on the OpenAI forums, and they were getting some kind of solution. So again, I want to go out there and say Gemini did an excellent job. I also ran this through Claude 3.5, which is my go-to, and it did not do as good a job as Gemini. So one-time thing, I generally think Claude is still better, but just overall very pleased. Okay, let's take a look here. We have the title, we have a bit of styling. I don't think anyone cares about that. If we start looking at the body, once again, I don't think that matters too much. We just have a chat area where we're going to put various things in there. We have the mic button, the send button, a modal, a pop-up for where we put in the OpenAI key, where we can save and cancel. All very simple, straightforward. And I'm also going to put this code up on my GitHub so that I can save other people just a bit of hassle, because it does look like it's difficult to try and get this set up. Okay, so what we're going to see is that there is basically the entire script is this real-time chat class, and then we're going to create a new chat at the very end when we start. So when you construct it, when you first call it, it's going to have a bunch of different variables for it to store. There is just a few things to keep track of. Is it recording? Is it connected? What's your API key? We'll talk about the ephemeral key in a moment. Just a bunch of things to store. We're going to list out the key elements that it should be aware of. And we're just going to bind a few listeners. So when you click stop recording, when you click a button, it's going to stop or start recording. All of this is simple enough. Oh, yeah. I don't make heavy use of this, but you can, in the middle of a conversation, also send in text. So, for example, I might be chatting with GPT, and I might say, here's the instruction manual, or here's the article I'm talking about, or whatever. And you could send it in and include it in your conversation. Personally, I don't care all that much, but that's what Gemini had provided me, which is a nice bonus. Okay, and here, API key, it's just listening for it to see whether it can get a new API key. All of this pretty straightforward. So all of this is just API key opening and closing the modal, saving it. Where it starts getting interesting is this. So the first step we have is to try and connect. And what's interesting is that you would think connect and init, WebRTC, are the same things, but this first step is actually a pretty good idea, except we're not making use of it. Basically, OpenAI now has this ephemeral key available to users. And the idea is I have an API key, I can host it on a server, and I could pass out these keys to other people that will disappear, that will stop working after a certain amount of time. And the idea is that way I don't expose my API key. Now, this is really good if I decide to turn this into a service. If I sell this for, $50 for every conversation, whatever, somebody purchases it, I will pass them an ephemeral key, and then they can use it for a bit, and then it disappears. I don't have to give them my API key, and I don't need a middleman server just running between every conversation. I'm just passing them a key that they can connect to OpenAI with. As you can see, I just went, the ephemeral key is the same as the API key, and we're just going to connect with the API key. Gemini very rightly says, not a recommended way to go about it, but because I'm asking every user to just put in their own API key, I don't care so much. It's not my key they're sending into the World Wide Web, it's their own. And they can rack up charges on their own key, don't care so much. Next, we're going to finally initiate the connection with WebRTC. And then once it's successful, it's going to change those trackers up here to say, it's connected now. Okay, so over here, this is where we get a lot of trouble Okay, so when we start a WebRTC, we're just going to use basic libraries already available in JavaScript to connect. We're going to choose a place for the audio to come in and a place for our audio to go to OpenAI. So create tracks that align with their audio and our audio. All of this boilerplate. Creating the right channels, blah, 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 listening for messages. So you saw all of those events in that console before. This is where we're catching all of the events. Where there is a really interesting trick is once you set all of this up, and we'll go to the bottom here. Actually, no, let's not. We'll go to the bottom in a bit. We're going to see all of these events when the channel is open, when we send something, when it's closed, when there's an error. We're going to do various things. But before all of that happens, we're going to create an offer and connect, basically. We have our URL, we have the right model. I probably want to switch to a cheaper model. Post and connect to it. What I think is really, really interesting here is that when we connect, we're going to get that initial, hello, how can I assist you, in a voice that is not available of our own choosing. The major trick for people on that OpenAI forum is you should wait until after you set up that connection, after that first audio clip comes in, before you start changing the session and saying what you want that session to be. And so you can see as soon as that channel is opened, then we're going to finally say, hey, this session we're going to update and we're going to change some of the parameters. And we're going to change the turn detection. This is when it's their turn and our turn to talk, basically how much silence before it starts assuming that you're talking. And so, for example, since my French is terrible, I might want to switch this to, wait 2 seconds before you start responding because I might just have a brain freeze and I'm thinking of the right word. This is pretty important, input audio transcription. Not every conversation has that transcription. If you use your phone and use ChatGPT Advanced Voice Mode, you're not seeing all that text. And to me, that's really important. You have to turn it on. And this is something that, again, I saw in the forums. You have to not listen to the API documentation where it had something like enabled and true. You can't have that or else it won't work, and yet that is in the documentation. You can choose the voice. I'm choosing Aloy, and then you can have your instructions. Here I have my quirky, please respond in French only. Modalities, temperature, these are just how do you want it to respond. Okay, so when you close, we're just changing the status of various things. Not so important. What's going to happen now instead is that we're detecting all of these events. Every time OpenAI responds with something, we're going to log it in console, but we're going to handle the message. And how we handle it is it depends. What kind of an event is there? And so here you can see we have audio transcript that we care about. There are many, many events that we could care about, but we've only selected these 5 because we're trying to catch all the transcripts. So anytime there's audio transcript, that's their side responding. And anytime we have transcripts, we're going to start adding to it. I'll come back to this, but we're going to start. So if we come back up here, once we connect, where'd it go here? Well, um, okay, so this is in the constructor. Once we click the button to start recording, it's going to go through a whole whack of other things. So first of all, check that there's a key, check that it's connected, and if not, wait for it to connect. Then it's going to just start streaming audio. Now, I'm not going to go through this because this is more just math to bring the streams across. This is all kind of textbook. Nobody remembers this kind of text. Same with stop recording. This one's very simple. You cut off the connection, and it's just updating all of the pieces. But where this has a lot of interesting change is that as those messages come in, we have this append response audio transcript. We have complete user audio transcript. And these are just functions to start interacting with the UI. And so append message will start adding it to the chat box up above. So here, append user audio transcript. We're going to get the event. We're going to see the item ID. We're going to find the query. And if it doesn't exist, we're going to create it, blah, 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 append it into the chat div, and put in the message, of course. What's really interesting, and when I dove down into this code as to why we were delayed all the time, is Gemini, when creating this, was expecting that OpenAI would continuously send our own delta, which means that word by word, we're going to see it crop up. And that response should be way faster than when it starts responding. So its assumption is that as we start speaking, we're the next line down. We don't have to wait for it to complete, so there's no lag, or at least not enough of a lag so that it gets out of order. And then when it's finally completed, it just goes in and corrects all of that text that it slowly pieced together. That seemed to be logical, and when I looked at the API, it certainly looked like it should work, but for whatever reason, OpenAI was not sending, this one, input audio transcription delta. And so, for whatever reason, Gemini was not perfect because this append was not happening. And instead, it was reliant entirely on this complete piece. So as a result, we were getting these out of order because of the delay, whereas Gemini, presumably if it did take a look at the API, in theory, I think it should have worked. So I'm not sure what the issue was. Anyways, all of these are just to add to the transcript along the way, and then there's a helper method down here. So there you have it. I hope this was really helpful. I think even more helpful is I'm going to put this on GitHub so you can take a look at how this works. This is not perfect code, but it does go through a couple of tricks that it seemed like there was a lot of agony online about trying to get these things working because it doesn't work as the API documentation does says it should. And yeah. So we have a working minimal project. I wonder what I changed here. Okay, let's not save those changes. And yeah, I'm excited to see what everyone's going to build with this because we've had text chatbots for a while now. That's starting to get mature. There's a lot of good ideas out there. Voice is a whole new game. And so I'm excited to see how people take this very, very simple template and start building it into language tutors, into, friendly chatter, imaginary friends, Santa Claus in an app, whatever it may be. And if you have anything, do share it in the comments. I love hearing about projects. And I will see you next week when we work on our next project. Thanks. Bye.